This is Polish House Davos 2023, and I think I can say it's really a powerhouse, especially when I look at the faces of our speakers and panelists. And allow me to say the atmosphere is very high, the energy in the room is very positive. Today we started on a very high note, talking about the important issues, especially in this turbulent, fragmented world. We tackled upon strategic investments, but also discussed how to leverage the talent. And especially in the previous discussion, we were talking about, just the IT talent is not enough. The work models are changing. There are increasing demand for tackling the well-being and mental health. And of course, there is huge need to adjust workforce to changing needs of automation, digitization. So there is huge need for reskilling and upskilling. All these big topics will be challenged and tackled in this panel, which will be hosted and led by Professor Marcin Piątkowski, Professor of Economics at Koźmiński University in Warsaw and lead economist at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. I'm very pleased to see the number of women presented in this panel. It really deserves a big round of applause.
Yeah, let's give it a big applause, please.
And on this high note, I give it and I pass it to you, Professor.
Sure. Thank you and welcome to everyone. Really happy and obviously a big honor and a privilege to be here with you today. The main objective of this panel is to show that we can organize panels that are much more gender balanced than before. In this case, we are counterbalancing what was happening in panels before. We have 4 powerful women that will share with us their insights and views on how to retain and how to attract talent. So the issue is, as you might, we all work at somewhere at the company, at the government, at the university, in various places. There are all these kind of events and trends that are happening at the same time. One is we have all gone hybrid, which is a huge impact of the COVID pandemic. There's a big shortage of labor in pretty much all the countries represented in the audience. The statistics for Poland is that 150,000 people a year leave the labor market because of population aging. So there's a huge gap that happens every year, and there will be 5 million fewer Poles ready to work by 2050. There's also inflation that is connected to, not really driven by increasing wages, but clearly because of the labor shortages, the wage growth has been significantly faster than in the past. We also have AI and robots and all the new technologies that we are being told will replace us and will create unemployment. And finally, we have the new generations, the Z and Y and X and millennials that apparently don't want to work 20 hours a day anymore. And the question is, how do we actually make sure that they want to work for us? How do we keep those that are in the company, and how do we attract the new ones that we need for our companies to grow? So we have 4 powerful women on the panel. I want to start with the CEO of PZU Życie, or the life insurance part of PZU, the largest insurance company in Poland and in Central and Eastern Europe, Mrs. Aleksandra Gatowska, to tell us how PZU has been working to keep what I understand is a very mixed age workforce that you might have in PZU. And so how have you retained those that you have? How did you attract new ones? And how you as a company that services other companies and other people, how did you change the offering that you have to keep yourself in the market and to differentiate your company from others?
Thank you for that question. I think that in our company, we see the human. We didn't actually speak only about mothers or fathers or women or men. We didn't divide people. We treat them as human beings. And I think that if we have some kind of special project, special treatment for employees, we say that we see that you have this kind of needs, so you may use it. In terms of COVID, we had some special programs, not only for managers, but also for the regular staff to develop themselves. Actually, 70% of people who make some new trainings, new studies, etc., those were women who were most maybe more responsible for other things. You know, we have alternative realities. Now we have all realities in the same time during the COVID pandemics. So it was really tough. And I think that women in our company really take place there and use the opportunity to develop themselves. On the other way, we are in the hybrid reality, actually, and this is not the question if. We were one of the first company in Poland that had special regulations for that. We worked 3 days out of work, 2 days in work, and actually people are different. Some of them want to be 5 days at work and like to be with people, etc. And other wants to be at home more. But I think that question is how we engage our employees, how we will treat them, that they would like to stay with us if they are not in company, and rules are different. So we are emphasize experience as a way of being more pro-employees, because if we want to say about culture, I think culture is really important, but we won't build it in 2 weeks, actually, or 2 months, etc. This is really long-term project, but experience, employee experience, is something we may do today. We may see things that we don't want to have in our workplace, and change it quickly, actually. So we put the emphasis on experience, on their experience. And I guess you said about IT problem. I guess everyone has it now. And I think that it's really hard because the mobility now is great, and it's not about physical mobility, but we may work from everywhere and anywhere. However, we should also, as companies, remember to put our CSR money to develop IT skills in universities, technology universities, etc. Because when people go out somewhere, who will teach the new generations? So
a quick question, Alexandra. Yeah. First, on work-life balance and satisfaction of the employees, since they have gone hybrid, have you checked whether they've become more productive and happier with the job? Is PZU better than anyone else in the market?
We are good at this. Actually, we have, in terms of engagement surveys, we have 10 points more than average in Poland.
So you know how you compare with
others. We know. However, we also see some problems, and we'll work on this. We see that this is really tough for managers to manage different people, because some of them, some of employees will go lower in case of productivity, and some of them, this is like imagining their dream work. Yes, so this is hard to have only one recipe for that.
Okay, good, Alexandra, thank you. A quick question to the audience. How many of you, please raise your hand, are now working hybrid? All right, pretty much everyone. I guess all of you here. Okay. Are you more happy and at least equally productive? Raise your hand. All right, there we are. We have a quick poll then. Excellent. Thank you. You're not so sure? No, we'll get there. Now let me turn it to Vera Futoriański, as CEO and founder of a global strategic consulting firm called Veritas Ventures. I know you had significant experience in working in all kinds of cultures, all kinds of countries. You now have a consulting firms that works with freelancers and experts that create multicultural, multinational teams. So how all these changes have affected your company? And what are the things that you're doing that you think make you better than everyone else?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. I mean, I'm all for collaboration, not competition. You know, I don't try to be better than everyone else, but if we're all better together, I think that would be really the goal. I must say, the experts I pull in now, they are very happy not to be in just one job, and I might be the odd one out. I don't know if everybody else is in a corporate or a fixed, let's say, a full-time employee position. I've been now running my own firm for 3 years, pretty much. I mean, Davos 2020 was actually when I decided to leave. I used to manage the Middle East for a big venture capital firm. So being here in 2020, I decided I'm going on my own, maybe not the best timing, but all turned out well. You know, I'd like to speak about what you addressed earlier also about finding talent, right? I think we're not going to find the right talent if we look too strong in the same direction. And I think this is what has been happening. We're looking in the same direction. If I speak to, in fact, while walking here, I bumped into somebody who is in the headhunting industry. And she was saying, we need to change the mindset of headhunters a lot as well, because they still think in a very male way of doing things. And I think we say we're looking for talent, but in fact, we're not utilizing the talent we have right here. I mean, the most underutilized talent is the women.
I agree. Let's look at all these faces.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, look at the women. I'm happy to see it's actually 50-50. You know, there are 50% women in the room, which is wonderful in general. In Davos, to see a bigger women representation is really it's great. It has changed a lot from before pandemic. So I think, you know, we need to look into utilizing many more women. They don't usually get the opportunities and access to the top. So if we get more women to the top, what happens now is we fight for the same seat at the table. Right, so in order to get more talent, we need to create maybe even other, you know, different tables, not fight for the one seat that we have at the table. That's one. And the second one, where I look into a lot, because I come from the technology space, so venture capital. Before was an ecosystem builder with Dubai government, and before that, I founded myself with Rocket Internet. And we look into talent that is in emerging markets. And I think that's the second underutilized resource we have in the world. There are so many amazing young talents in Africa and Southeast Asia. And we're not really, you know, looking at them, but they're learning how to code on YouTube. They're teaching themselves skills that previously big organizations like SAP or IBM used to teach. Now they don't need them anymore. So I think the big question really is, why should a young, talented person go to a big corporate if they can actually go to, let's say, work as an expert on a project that really matters and come and work for, you know, people who run their own companies. I mean, not, you know, just me, but like just to bring it back to the freelancers. People care about, and I say people, but also, I mean, especially women, care a lot about the mission, you know, and I think if there's a mission behind, you attract the better talent. So really have a mission behind it. I recently gave an interview where I say women chase meaning, and I really mean it. I think women have to feel that there is a certain meaning.
Line, yes. Men don't.
Men don't as well.
Now he's starting to have a real debate here.
Men chase tasks.
Men. See, I have Alexandra, thank you. So I have a supporter here. Men chase task and men chase profit a lot, right? So we need to switch from that profit chasing to actually meaning chasing. And that way we get also the millennials, the Gen Z, they want to have meaning in what they do. And in order to, you know, to go back to the title of this panel, to win the best talent to remain them, I think it's about making sure we actually create purpose for them and meaning in projects they're going to be working on.
Thank you, Vera. Great. Silvia, so what do you think? Do women chase meaning more than men do? And Silvia, Console Battilana is a co-founder of a large company that organizes actions for companies. So whenever you want to buy something and want to get it at the lowest price, there's a person you want to talk to. But to us, the question is, when you want to attract women, particularly in a high-level and high-paid position which is a global issue, how do you do that? Is it just about meaning? Is there anything else that you think is critical?
So I work in multi-billion-dollar auctions, so it's mostly a male-dominated world. So it actually tends that the women that work with
There's
us...
no meaning at your work?
No, definitely.
Tasks?
No, definitely. I'd say there's less difference between women and men. I think I see them the same way. However, we do realize that in terms, to the extent that we have travel, that travel is added to the picture. One difference is that it's still the case that like women that also have children don't like to travel as much. So both for retaining the talent of the men, retaining the talent of the woman, we make sure, and this is a little bit atypical because we can do it because we are a startup, we do things like when we have a big auction and the husband comes with us to another country for the auction, or the woman comes, then either we also hire nannies that are covered by the project that travel with us, and we never have hotel rooms. We have big apartments, so they can bring their whole family. They can even have friends stay. And if they have babies, then we pay for a night nanny for the first 2 weeks. So we do those things that are very child-friendly, that turn out to be very much appreciated by both the man and the woman. And so every family-oriented employee of ours ends up being very loyal to us because they know we care. And so gender neutral, if they're man or woman, we will either bring a nanny or hire a night nanny.
Why do you care and other companies don't?
Well, I don't know that other companies don't. If they are larger, they might not be able to just say, okay, I'm going to give apartments to everybody instead of hotels, because there's policies if they're larger. We started when we were smaller, I could make these decisions, and it helps. And we realized that decision-making it's not just employee, but also their partner. So, whatever incentive compatibility is what we go after since we're game theorists. And it has to be that if somebody else offers them a job, they probably discuss it with their partner, so we make sure that they're both happy with us.
Excuse me, this is actually experience, because as employee, when I have some stress, etc., because my children will stay at home, why shouldn't we pass it? Yes, and actually, I am the person who here is with 4 years old children, and I am here with my son, with the nanny, and actually, I make a joke that he is the youngest participant here, but. Why is it so important? Because I would be more stressed out than now I am, because I know that he's playing, etc. And now I'm here and I am able to be here, not stressed.
Exactly.
And you don't think it's universal yet? So companies do not allow the...
I don't think if it's universal. I think not, but I think that women actually start to think about it more. As me, I just do it. So I'm not thinking about this in terms of my work, but in terms of my life. And I believe that there is no work-life balance, just life balance. So,
let me quickly turn it to Anna Burchell, who is now the special envoy for a Romanian nuclear power energy company, but she used to be the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice in Romania, and she was also in charge of a big setting up and leading an idea for an educational pact. But before I ask the question on education, what do you disagree with?
No, I don't think I disagree. I think probably, well, at least from my experience, because I wore two hats. I was in corporate, I was a lawyer on Wall Street, and I entered public life. And in fact, I was one that gave up Wall Street in 2002 to go back to my country, Romania, and enter public service to help my country to get into the EU and NATO. That was my brief at that time, and I was very proud to be part of that team that actually got my country on an irreversible path to the democracy. So when I was choosing the law school...
Congratulations and thank you on behalf of all the Romanians and all the Central and Eastern Europeans. Thank you. We owe you a big drink tonight. Please come.
Yeah. But no, obviously, I was educated at Yale Law School. My master and my PhD was there. And when I wanted to work on Wall Street to a law firm, obviously, a lot of offers are on the table. You know why I choose, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, a particular leading law firm? Because when I was interviewing, I saw on the walls drawings all of the partners, of the partners' kids. So I thought, I was pregnant with my son at that time, and I thought, oh, this is a really great environment. And it turned out to be a really great law firm, which if I have to pick it again, I will do the same. So I guess, those are not new policies that came around yesterday. Those were, in this particular case, that was in 2021, so, a few years back. So, I'm not in a position to give advice, but, from somebody that benefited, I think on the corporate law world, you do need to have that balanced life approach. And investing in your human resources, in the end of the day, that's your wealth, is the only wealth. When that comes to the public service as well. And you are asking me about the education. I think, as parents, as societies, we can't give a better wealth to our kids than access to a good education. And, education, I always say, you are an economist. People are here in the room more looking from the accountant point of view. I always challenge that because I always said that every single penny that you spend on education is not a expenditure. It's an investment in your present and especially in your future. So, investing in education, investing in mentorship, I think at the corporate level, but again, at the public service as well, because we do need good people in the public service, in politics, investing in mentorship, setting up those programs where, you could really do good mentoring. I always, when I enter public service, my team was, most of them, they were from my interns. And I had several rules, but one of the very important rule I set up with them was for them to always tell me the truth, to have that courage that they will tell the truth. You might not like it as a leader, as a corporate manager, but you know what? You can get upset 5 minutes, get it out of the system, but then appreciate that they actually had the courage and the trust in themselves and in you to tell you the truth. And then, you have that respectful environment, have the respect for their work. That's why how you retain the talent. Respect their work, empower them, giving them, the feeling that when they've done a good job, say thank you and well done. Those little things matter so much. And then, when they don't do that well, you just need to show and lead, because that's why you are a leader, part of that mentorship. And, you create a very good environment that, people are not going to leave for better jobs if they are offered better salaries. Yes, salary is important, but the work environment, it's incredibly important. And obviously resources. Invest all the time in the resources and be up there up front.
So let's talk a little bit more about skills and education. And I want to ask everyone else about your specific companies on what do you do to help your staff become better skilled, particularly in the digital technology and the like. But a question, Anna, to you. If you were Prime Minister of Romania, inshallah, what exactly would you do? What decision would you take to support education in real sense?
Well, you touched something very dear to my heart. One of my very first policies when I entered public service was on education. Actually, I set up the first national pact on education, meaning to take the education away from the political fights and to really have that a consensus agreement among the parties and the society, because practically all the time I believe that education, it has this education from home, education from school, and education from the society, what models the society is putting out there. And all this trio needs to have at heart, at center, the interest of the child. So, invest in education. Don't do the experiments on education. I always argue with lots of ministers, when they assume a position, they believe that they reinvented the wheel. And that's absolutely nonsense. Take a heart of everything was good and then build on that. Put the like every time when you build something, if you build your society, if you build a relationship, everything, if you build your company, the foundation is critical. If the foundation is solid, then the building is going to be sustainable and will cross hundreds and hundreds of years. So, have the education, have a good public service, and have a good rule of law. I mean, have the rule of, if you have those pillars, then you will be driving. And that's applicable not just to Romania, but applicable to any country in the world, and especially in our region. And yes, we do have, I said it in my panel, I honestly have so much trust in our region, and Poland it's a great example. My country is a great example as well. Our region is, and it's not because women love diamonds, but I always said it that, our region is like a diamond that wasn't allowed to shine. And I think it needs to be allowed to shine now. And, that allowness is actually in all and each of us. So, we might need to grab the chance and put this region at its place.
Well said. Let's call it the diamond panel from now on.
You know what? I had a very good panel this morning with really good, challenging issues on energy. So
I think
you compete on
it's
that
the Shining Diamonds panel.
Yeah, I know. Let's make it an annual tradition. Let me now quickly turn to Silvia. So how do you upskill your own staff? I'm sure you're a high value-added company. You deal with very complex ideas and concepts based on virtually a Nobel Prize winner's work in economics. So how do you make sure that their skills remain on the global frontier? And whenever people leave for whatever reason, how do you get the best guys?
Yes. So auctions, the kind of auctions we do are actually not something you learn at school, because we invent new auctions every time. So actually the best learning they get is by working with my co-founder, who's, as you mentioned, a Nobel laureate. So we do two things at the same time. One is when we have the younger generation that comes straight from undergrad to us. Typically they work with us like 2-3 years, and then we sponsor their PhD. And so they keep actually working with us through their PhD, and even if they become faculty, they never fully leave us, because we have some people who are like full-time, but a lot that are also professors, and they work with us. So they have remained with us through that path, from undergrad to PhD.
You pay for your PhD, for their PhD studies?
As a bonus, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a serious investment. Well done.
Yeah.
And that's why they are close to you.
Yeah, and we have like a very high retention. But it's also related to, can we get somebody that is already an expert in auctions the way we do them? No, it actually takes almost a year to train them and to be up to speed, like working with us. And therefore, if you look at the cost-benefit analysis of how much time it would take you to get somebody new, it's very high for us. So it actually makes most economical sense. We do it also for what you mentioned earlier, or you mentioned too, is like showing that we care and then they stay. But also financially, it's hard to find somebody that is ready.
No, but if I could jump in and just say, look, from my dealings with the youth, because another project that was very dear to my heart, the title doesn't sound great, because I wasn't inspired at that time, but it was about the young families. And I set up 3 levels of policies to tackle the issues that you were mentioning, and there are critical issues if we are not addressing them in a serious manner when it comes to demographics. So one is, the first job, the first house, and the first child. To get your first job, people are requiring experience. Okay, what experience should I have if I just finished the high school or the university? Then, a lot of people, they don't want to think about having a family, a young family. I called it young families as a society priority, because they don't have their house. Well, they don't have their house because they don't have access to the credit, because they didn't get the job, and so on and so forth. And then, so if you are breaking this circle, and you are making that environment friendly towards, obviously you need to pay them well, because it's a heavy competition up there. But it's not just about the money. Sometimes the reward, it's just getting a job done well, getting a project really, over the line, and especially if it was a tough project, the reward and that personal pride that's even bigger and higher, you know, that counts at least as much as the financial aspect. So creating that and investing in your people, you need to invest in your human resources.
Agreed. So Vera, what is your take on how do you help people get up to speed on all the skills that they need to remain competitive?
Yeah, I 100% agree on investing in the people, because what we do nowadays is we focus on effectiveness, efficiency, optimizations, repeatable results. I mean, how does that sound?
Like an AI.
It sounds like it can be automated, exactly. So if you can, I mean, I think there's something like a quote that if you can describe your job in one word, you will no longer have it, or you won't have it much longer. Just because if you can say that at 5 a.m. I do this, at 6 a.m. I do this, then an AI can do this in a couple of years, right? We humans are important because we have creativity, we have inspiration, we have critical way of thinking that AI doesn't have yet. I mean, the chat GPT can write long stories now and even poems, and that's maybe great for marketeers and for people in PR who need this writing, but it's not really, I mean, you can argue it can be a bit creative, but it's not really the creativity we humans possess, this critical thinking. I think that's what we need to foster, be it in a startup, be it in a big organization.
How do you do that? I mean, everyone agrees we need to be more creative, but what do we do exactly?
We need to give time to reflect. I think it's really important. We can't just give people tasks and say, okay, put these numbers in the Excel sheet and get it back to me by 3 p.m., right? Even though it takes more time, and I mean, it's expensive to invest in people, but it's more expensive not to invest in people who work for you. So it might, you wanted to add something?
Only if you disagree, Anna.
I agree partially, if I could say this way, because, you know, deadlines are important, but likewise investing in that happiness. And when, you know, okay, it's okay to have that flexible hours with working on a hybrid mood, but you know what? I saw people when they came after the pandemic in the office, and people were hugging to each other. You know, people were happy to actually be in the same room. And you know, what I found looking at some, and you know, speaking
like
with
hugging.
a lot of people. No, okay, no, actually, working from home, you put more hours in if you are working from the office and that hybrid. And you know, what I think we should be careful of not having not constantly to be on a call culture type thing, you know, to just, you know, when you are done with the work, you need to allow people to breathe and to really disconnect and create that environment. You were talking about the nannies. You know what is important for women? You know, another piece of good legislation, which I'm very proud of, was the first equal opportunity law in Romania. That was as my first time as an MEP. And I was really eager, and I was quite determined with lots of fights to actually put in the law for equal work, equal pay. You know, it sounds, you know, why you should not have that. But, you know, look at the current legislation, a lot of national, legislation of the member states, and you will find out some surprises. So, you know, creating that environment for the kindergartens, you know, close to your workspace, that little thing actually can make such a huge difference.
Let's park this question if you want to finish on creativity.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this was an addition to what I was saying, but obviously I agree with you on those points as well. But I was talking about that we need to make sure, and to your question, how we can actually give those opportunities to people. So I think it's about giving them time to reflect. Deadlines are important, but actually foster the creativity. And that's where role models come in as well, right? Well, we also say, I mean, you need to see certain role models, all kinds of people in higher positions in order to thrive, to be there as well. What I do also with the, let's say, the experts and freelancers I work with, we discuss certain opportunities of continuous education. There are so many free tools as well to continue education, but also some, you know, non-expensive courses at Harvard, Yale that you can take, or like the Think Institute. So it's kind of creating this culture of we can openly talk about it, to really have the culture of being, have the space of where you're being appreciated, challenged, but at the same time pushed to thrive even more.
Sure, even though it's easier said than done. So
100%.
we can elaborate. Before the audience because before we lose the audience, I'll ask you questions, and I would like the audience to ask questions just after Alexandra, because I want Alexandra to tell us, PZU is the largest company here represented on the panel. So how do you help your own employees? What are the type of training programs you deliver? We heard from an earlier panel that digital skills is the future, apparently. So what do we exactly do? And are you going to pay for PhDs from now on?
We actually paid for different studies, so studies are also on our offer to our people. We also
you pay for studies for your employees?
Studies, yes, and we actually do a lot of things that I think a lot of companies has, like different trainings, etc., etc. But also we have some our internal program, internal platform of learning, like Future On, You Create the Future, etc. When we ask different experts from different countries, different parts of businesses to share with our people their knowledge, their thoughts. And I think that these platforms are really inspiring for them. But also we have a lot of offer in terms of well-being. So but in two ways. One way is to directly offer for our employees, but the other one is to people in Poland. And I believe that our employees are really satisfied with this, because they are proud that we educate people how to treat themselves well. So I think that this is important. We had some special campaigns, etc., about having impact on our lives. And PZU Live actually has a big impact, because we have a lot of companies and group insurances. So we, through the HR strategies of these companies, we have impact on more people than we thought previously. And I think that having impact in terms of educating, actually, we may understand it really broadly, is something we have to use. Because if, for example, I use the offer of PZU, I will be doing this inside my family or my friends, etc. So this impact is really big.
Excellent. We still have 20 minutes left. Let's start to slowly open it up for questions from the audience. In the meantime, I want to segue into the other part of our discussions, which is about how many foreigners do you employ in your company? Because that leads us to the question about immigration. If I mentioned at the beginning that there's 150,000 Poles that leave the labor market every year because of population aging, and it won't get any better. So the question is, do you already feel at PZU that this population aging is sort of affecting the way you work, both internally and what you offer to your clients? And would you believe that it's possible for you to actually attract high-value immigrants? You know, I could imagine you attracting young, smart Filipinos, Ethiopians, Vietnamese, and others to work the jobs that, for various reasons, you cannot find Poles to do. So what do you think?
I think that in PZU we have a special structure of the employees, because we have employees really young. We have 4 or 5 generations as we calculate, and we have really young people. But also we have people who work for us for 30 years. So they are really, you know, they know PZU from the scratch almost, and they are really, really important for us as the source of information, how we change, etc. So we learn a lot from them, but also from these younger generations. And actually, as you said, that this silver generation will go away on the retirement. for us, it would be the problem because we have a lot of stuff from the generation also. We are open to another people from other countries. Actually, the number of foreigners is growing, but not so rapidly. Now more because of Ukrainian immigrants. And
Do you have a number? How many Ukrainian refugees you employ?
I don't remember, but it's not so big actually now. However, we have also some kind of expats forms because we have also businesses in Ukrainian, in Baltic countries. So we have different employees also, but it's not so big.
All right. Vera, you have, yes, please
I
go ahead.
quickly wanted to comment on that because I'm based in Dubai, so I am actually attracting or hiring or attracting experts to work with me from so many different countries. I mean, Dubai is really like a walking United Nations. I like really to hire people who can bridge both mindsets. So I tend to hire a lot of Turkish people, in fact, because they really bridge
What do
this.
you mean both mindsets? Like
The West, exactly, I was going to describe the Western and the Middle Eastern, exactly. Because and somebody was talking about building relationships, and it's so important about to build relationship, especially why I'm based in the Arab world, and I work a lot with Saudi as well. It's really all about building relationships. It's not a transactional culture, and the Middle East. I myself was also born in Central Asia, so it's this mindset of investing in people, investing in humans is really, really important. So I like to work with people who understand, let's say, this Western mindset of, I mean, luckily in Europe, we're not as transactional. We also value relationships as well, but also there's a bit more kind of slower, let's have tea together, let's get to know your family mindset we have in the Arab culture. So I think this is really important going forward. And because I'm in tech, we look a lot, I was saying before, at emerging markets where people come from different cultures, but they have this mindset, this growth mindset that I think a corporate cannot really teach you. And I'm sorry, for like, I'm nothing against corporates, but it's thing they needed. But I think they have to really realize the next talent is not really going to a corporate to learn a growth mindset. You learn it by, yourself, in startups, with other people. It's about, besides well-being, which is super important, I agree, and the growth, paying for their studies. But I think the corporates need to understand they need to offer much more going forward than just here's an app that you can meditate online. This is not enough. Like the young people, the talent, 4 billion in Africa. I mean, the next Marie Curie will not come from Europe or the US. She will come from Bangladesh or Nigeria. So it's really important.
Marie Curie, they only come from Poland.
Well, not the next one, I'm sorry to say, but who knows? Maybe if you attract more immigrants. So I think we really need to invest in the emerging markets, in fostering, kind of changing our mindset that we need to be much more inclusive and think global.
Great comment. Thank you, Silvia. Can the whole world look like Dubai? Is it realistic? I mean, you live in California, and since Trump and now Biden has sustained restrictions on visas for high-value individuals. So why California is not like Dubai? Why don't we just attract all the best talents? And somehow, even in Silicon Valley, it does not work. What has been your experience?
So for the big corporations, I agree that it has become harder because there is the restrictions on visa caps. So, and the caps all end in the day in which they open, pretty much all run out because the biggest companies with the best lawyers manage to get them all. So for corporations that have to hire, for example, on H-1B visa, which is the one that typical people come to the US with, it has become quite hard. For entrepreneurs, there is still a lot of very creative ways around, like investor visas or things like that. So that's still working. So for the people that really push and are really entrepreneurial, there is still a path, because as long as you're giving jobs to Americans, then you fall under the assumptions. But I would say there is a lot of the political fear of taking the jobs of our country away that has then changed some of those laws that make it difficult.
How multinational is your company? How many countries do they represent?
So we are small, but we are very multinational, meaning that we have people in Spain, in Hong Kong, because we were always remote, so we were loving it. So we have people in Italy, Spain, Hong Kong, and then we have some people in Germany, and then around the US. However, nothing like these ladies. They have like really international and big. But one thing to add is, so when you have a legislation that makes it harder in the visas, it also makes it hard for the employees who then want to change companies, and that creates bad incentives for corporation, because they know the employees cannot just leave, because then they would get kicked out of the country if they have only 2 weeks to get a new job. So it actually creates a perceived incentive to treat the employees worse. And so it actually, the whole environment suffers through it.
Good point. Can I turn to Romania and Anna? So I understand there has been worries that if anything, Romania has not been a magnet of immigration, that actually been a source of emigration. So people were leaving the country for the last 10 years plus, and I know you worry about brain drain. So to what extent is it even possible for Romania to attract talents from around the world while stopping the brain drain, which apparently has been happening?
Yeah, well, the brain drain was a phenomenon for all our countries, you know, in our part of the world before the EU accession and right after EU accession. And it is a worry at the, you know, the policy maker level, but at the corporate level as well, because, you know, when you are investing in your human resources and, you know, other countries are cherry picking your best talented people.
Like Dubai.
Like, you know, look, you know what, shall I make a comment? Because it made a incredibly, as I was listening to you, I was thinking of my conversation with my son, because he is now finishing the university and he is hunting for jobs. And I was saying, what type of job? I said, yeah, you know what, a job where I will be happy, where I will feel that I can contribute. You know, he didn't mention to me that a job that will pay him the highest. You know, and that was something that is obviously changing. If you look at our generation, when, you know, probably you might have looked firstly for the financial security. So certainly the trend is changing, and it's wise to look at that environment. So coming back to the brain drain, look, you know, if you are a country and you invest in your future, you obviously need to find a way of retaining your talented people in your country. But hey, I have this policy and philosophy that, you know, if somebody, you know, people, you know, lots of Romanians are going abroad to universities. I am one of them. When I quitted Wall Street and I came back to Romania, you know, a lot of my friends, actually, they worried if I was actually seriously healthy. You know, there was something wrong with me. Why am I giving up? And we are talking in the, you know, the environment of 2002, 2002, and, you know, the realities in our part of the world. So, you know, just to give up a high, well-paid job and a good track partnership on a leading law firm and just enter public service in Romania, that was crazy. But you know what? I don't regret it, and I will do it again, because, you know, coming back to your question, I think you need to find ways of maintaining your talented people in the country or in your companies, or if they are going away, you find ways to keep them still close to you as a country.
Work online.
Exactly. To you, you know, for us. And obviously, then you need to be open up to have policies like other developed countries had when they were picking our brains. So, you know, our part of the world needs to pretty much do the same. And here I see the private sector, the companies, driving that process.
Great, thank you. Let me open it up to the audience for any. We still have one last round of questions, but any questions, comments from the audience, please? There's one gentleman with a beard in the back, or the lady. I wanted to reverse, actually. Let's have a man ask a question first, sir.
I'm sorry, I do apologize.
Yes.
It's not my decision.
I give you a brownie point for signing up.
Hi, my name is Sebastian. I got a question. As much as I agree with you with everything we should do for the employees, make them happy, 100%. But how do you think we can balance between the developing world, where the hunger is completely different, hunger for success, for money as well, actually, versus the developed world, where we put so much attention into the comfort zone of the employees, them being happy. As much as I agree with that, I have a problem understanding where are we heading, where it comes to being competitive, and whether the developing world will at some point just take over. And as much as I agree with you saying that the next Marie Curie will be from different part of the world, yes, but where's the competitiveness here, and where it's going to lead? I would put it that way.
A great question. So I could rephrase it by saying, will Generation Z be replaced by Generation P like poor, which is all the millions and billions of young people that will be born in poor countries? There will actually be 2.2 billion young people born mostly in sub-Saharan Africa within the next 40 years, and these all people will be born into grinding poverty. So talking to them about First World War problems and comfort zones and meditation apps is pretty abstract. But let me park this question. I get one or more two questions from the audience, and we'll go back to the panel. There was a question from a lady there, the smiling one.
Yes, thank you, ladies. Well, just to get back to the title of the event, what would be your one strategy to win talent that you want us to leave with?
Okay. That's for the last round, but let's park this question. Any other question left? Yes, one more, please.
I have one question because you were talking about keeping female talents, and the impression I got it was all about maternity and everything. Are you really convinced that to keep the good woman is to provide them with all of these maternity perks, or just to have them on the table, like equal partners? That's my question.
All right, good. So let's open it up to whoever wants to. The first question is, what about all these new 2 billion young people from developing countries? We can leave the policy questions for the last round. And then the question is, what beyond pro-family policies, what else is important to attract women?
But on the first one, Sebastian, what makes you think that if people are happy or happier at work, they are not competitive? I will challenge you, and I will tell you that actually people being happier at work and in a work environment, and not just killing hours and hours and hours and staying at the office just for the sake of staying at the office because the partner, you are on a fast track partnership, or you want to make partner in a big law firm, and all the associates that are running and competing with each other, they keep the door open and you stay, you feel the same. No, I don't think that being happy at work and creating that balanced work environment won't make it competitive. I think actually it's the other way around.
Narrow down, just to make it more precise. I have in mind not only those high-end jobs, great companies, corporates or not corporates, startups, where you have a lot of challenges, where you're working with an amazing project, where everything is fascinating and great. I 100% agree with you in that case. When we're talking about billions, now even billions or hundreds of millions, about simple jobs that you cannot offer them a PhD degree, you cannot offer them, someone coming from sub-Saharan Africa, you cannot offer them Fruity Fridays or whatever it is. How we can find a balance of competitiveness between those two
Silvia,
markets.
okay.
I actually was going to agree with you in a different way, meaning entrepreneurship, which is what I see a lot in the Silicon
Agree in
Valley.
a different way. I like how you put it.
No, it's agree in a different way, meaning that hunger and that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, like difficulties actually make for the most successful entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley. And it's like having survived difficulties is what makes you stronger, and that gives you more drive. And if you're satisfied in life, then probably you won't create the 4th or 5th or 6th company, you just retire and live a happy life. So there is a point also, not just on the I think you were asking more about the employee, but I'm saying also from the employer point of view, the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that are by definition unsatisfied, because that's what keeps them pushing. And so in that sense, it might be that the next big ones will come from
Vera?
Yeah. Yeah, hard conditions create the best entrepreneurs, really. Also, to your point, Africa has leapfrogged before, right? I call them emerging markets, you call them developing, but we're talking about the same markets, right? I've been working in that space for over a decade. Back then with Rocket Internet, when we're actually launching all the different companies everywhere. And we noticed that Africa leapfrogged the PC completely. They went straight to the smartphones. In fact, people in Africa have much more trust in paying for the insurance or transferring money online on the mobile phone than anybody in Western Europe, right? So we actually can learn a lot. That's why, I mean, your question on competitiveness, I think there's a lot of competitiveness in those markets. One of the largest fintechs came from Africa recently. I mean, there's so much potential in Southeast Asia as well. And yes, I mean, the largest country on the planet now, which is actually India. I know we say it's China, but India, I think, has the larger number of people. There are a lot of developers, right? I mean, they have the competitiveness so strong. I mean, some of the best developers in the world, besides the Polish, Ukrainian, and Romanian, maybe, they're also in India, right?
No, but if, to complement what you're saying, when I was traveling to India, I went, to very not developed villages. And, every single village I passed through, I saw school, education. And I met with a bunch of kids from various ages, and I asked, how many of you are going to university? All of them put their hands up. So I guess, it comes back to the education and to that trust. And I guess something that you are touching on this is that probably in that part of the world, the trust in themselves and the hunger in themselves to make it, it's higher. But I guess going back to education, and if we are being careful, or if you are not being careful when you are educating your kids in the school and in the models that we were talking earlier, is you need, I think one key success is to give the kid the trust that he is good at something. Have that confidence in your own strength and in your powers that you will make it. Doesn't matter where and how, but you will make it.
Well said. On this, let's call it a 2 billion people question, because going forward, one of the key challenges for the rest of our lives will be how to use these 2 billion young people around the world productively. Because as much as we talk about India, when you're born in Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Malawi, you don't have the same opportunities as you do in India. And again, most of these 2 billion people will be born in countries where they do not have the opportunities to grow, while at the same time, the West, where we are from, will be aging and shrinking. So the challenge will be how to create a potential win-win, if it's politically possible, to use these 2 billion people for the benefit of those that are already declining. So it's a big question we can park. But now I want to go to the last round of questions, which is, what are your top 3 recommendations for either your fellow corporate managers and or policymakers? Again, what do we need to do to retain talent and to attract talent, both men and women? What are your top 3 ideas?
First of all, I think that leaders have to remember about learning about not only business things, but learning about people, learning about societies, to understand that. Second of all, I think that leaders has to go down and really be close to the people, because as I said earlier, some kind of researches, we don't see 94% of crucial information about our companies or institutions, etc. So I think that we need to be close to the people, or change the way of information flowing around us. And the third thing, I think that we have to invest in human beings, not workers, but human beings, as it was said before.
Very good. Silvia, your 3 ideas.
Well, one which is similar is like show you care about every employee. The second one, which is in a large organization, is like to several levels, is like learn to have the difficult conversations as a manager, because the most you can learn and retain is actually when somebody is troubled and you listen, really, truly listen, and then you learn from their suggestion. And maybe you don't retain them, but it teaches you to retain all the others. And the third one is just keep up with the times.
Okay, very good. Anna?
Education is first, because, my grandma used to tell me, she said, what you have in your head and in your heart, nobody can take away from you, ever, under no circumstances. And I think that comes to the role models that you promote at the company level, at the society level. There is one quote and said, "The talent is dancing, the faking is jumping," So you need to really go being truthful and real, and that goes to create a good mentorship. And for that matter, if we are talking about women, I would like to see a little bit more solidarity among the women, including at the corporate level, but at the public service as well. Women to have the courage to promote other women and invest in other women. And then it should be the respect, and not the last, invest in your resources as a country, likewise in resources as a company. Keep up with the times, and yes, look for the future, but do not throw everything that is old-fashioned. Not that it's old-fashioned is not good. It's actually quite good, and it teaches you so good lessons, because you do have a great wealth in your organization of the people that remember how it was 30 years ago, 25 years ago. So it's practically your watching dog, which is telling you, this might work or this might not work.
Thank you. Last words, Vera.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I know we're out of time. On the solidarity, actually, 100% agree. In fact, I think one of the important aspects is community going forward as well. People don't find community in the workplace. They find community outside for now. I'm building a community for female leaders. In fact, I would love for all you three to be part of this community. That is a trusted community of equals where you can really, give back, but also receive. A lot of strong women nowadays give, inspire, mentor, but don't actually receive. So how can we create a community where everybody is supported as well? I think that's really important. For corporates, I think we need to understand that, going back to the leapfrogging part, all those new 2 billion people that will be coming, and already now the young people, the youngest population is in Africa already, I think, right? So how can we actually attract them? Because now people used to be loyal to companies, but I think it's the other way around. Companies almost start to need to be open and loyal to people. So how can you attract that talent? By changing the way you've been doing until now. And the third, I go back to the purpose, really. We need to have more purpose. Companies have to have purpose in what they do and be transparent and open about it, and that will attract the young talent and the older talent, everybody, really.
So not the money, but meaning. I think it will be a very nice summary of this terrific panel we have had with the shining diamonds. Please give a big applause to all the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.
The moderator as well. Okay.
To all the panelists. Thank you so much.